And so much of the success of a quarterback, especially a young rookie quarterback or a second-year quarterback, is determined by where they land and what situation you land. He's also a big culture guy, and I have to admit I was a little bit surprised by that. I do think it's rare to have a coach that is both of those in the NFL. Kind of just a handful of them. I mean, realistically, they need to get Nick Saban out of retirement, which he's too good on TV. He's chilling. All right, I do want to touch. These are sort of my surprises and my disappointments of the NFL season so far. When the divorce happened, maybe let's not call it a divorce, but with the Detroit Lions, with Ben Johnson leaving and Aaron Glen leaving to go to the Jets and Johnson going to the Chicago Bears. And everyone thought that, okay, first of all, everyone thought, oh man, they're going to leave the Detroit Lions in shambles. How are they going to be? They're going to take a huge step back. Wrong. Detroit Lions look like the same Detroit Lions. But the interesting thing was when those two coordinators were leaving, everybody talked about how Aaron Glen, the defensive coordinator, was the culture guy. And Ben Johnson was the X's and O's, kind of more cerebral guy. Aaron Glen goes to the New York Jets, and he is unable to establish a winning culture there. Now, we don't know exactly what all goes into that. We've seen a lot of really capable and competent coaches go to the New York Jets and not be able to break through that. I don't know if it's ownership. I don't know if it's what it is. But Robert Saleh, for example, and he bounces right back to the 49ers, and now the 49ers defensive culture is incredible. Robert Saleh is a great culture builder. Aaron Glen, we've seen what he did with the Detroit Lions defense, and doing it with the third and fourth string guys. The Detroit Lions were famously so injured on defense, and yet Aaron Glen was still able to keep that together. So everyone thought that Glen is the culture guy and Johnson's not. Turns out Ben Johnson is also the culture guy. He's obviously the offensive scheme wizard, X's and O's guru. He's also a big culture guy. And I have to admit, I was a little bit surprised by that. Maybe it was just because he was so overshadowed by Dan Campbell at Detroit. We never really got to see him speak. Anytime the camera cut to him, he's just like, clipboard, headphones on, and just looking very analytical. I've been really, really overjoyed, maybe is the wrong word, but pleasantly surprised by what we see from Ben Johnson out of the locker room in Chicago. And so I'm going to share this post-game speech of Ben Johnson giving the game ball to Dennis Allen, the D coordinator, who was the former Saints head coach, who they just beat. So this is kind of cool. But I just will say, Ben Johnson he gets me gassed up. And he's legit. Sorry about that. He is not hitting us with coach speak, with any of this fluff. He's talking about real stuff. So here is Ben Johnson after the game.
That's right. 4 in a row. That's right. Hey, what do you say? Hey, man, I'm proud of you guys so much. That was a huge week for us, and the reason why we didn't handle the short week well the first go-around, so much better this go-around. Let me tell you something. Offense, 200 yards on the ground. Defense, another 4 turnovers. Holy cow. I got 1 game ball for right now. We'll have more tomorrow. I have 1 game ball right now, okay? I already talked about defense, 4 turnovers, okay? Defense, 44 yards on the ground, all right? Defense, 4 sacks. Dennis Allen, come here!
How cool is that? Sorry, Dennis Allen, we're not going to watch you speak, but how cool is that? Dennis Allen, who got fired by the Saints and is now the DC, and you go and dominate down. Was that at New Orleans? I'm actually not sure, but they dominate. They dominate the Saints there, and so you can't tell me that this is not a team that has a good, strong culture that's moving in the right direction. And yeah, there's still some stuff to fix. Caleb has flashes of unbelievable plays, but he also sometimes misses the layups. He'll miss some of these kind of easier passes and sometimes has accuracy issues. Now, I won't go as far as Troy Aikman went and said anytime they throw a touchdown pass, it's lucky and blame Caleb for hitting a receiver in the chest too hard. But there is still something to be desired from Caleb, but he's obviously moving in the right direction. And a thing that he does not turn the ball over, which is so important as a quarterback. So we do have to give him his props. But I have just been overwhelmingly impressed with Ben Johnson. Obviously, the X's and O's, the scheme, but then the culture building. And I do think it's rare to have a coach that is both of those in the NFL. It's kind of just a handful of them. I mean, Sean McVay comes to mind when you think of that, guys who have the combination. And Ben Johnson also seems to have that. And I will also say, in a different way, that Kyle Shanahan has that. Now, he's not as kind of boisterous and bravado speaking as a Sean McVay or a Ben Johnson. But you look to that victory last night and what the 49ers have been doing this year with all of the injuries. And yeah, all the X's and O's and everything, that's great. The scheme is great. But you cannot maintain success with all those injuries without having an elite culture. And Christian came up to the podium after the game, after his great game, and he basically pointed right to that. He said, how does this happen? How do you have the success and go 5-2 with all these injuries and you're starting quarterback out? It's the leadership and it's the culture. So I do want to give the props to Kyle Shanahan as well, even though it does look a little bit differently. I mean, maybe he just doesn't have as fun of a personality when speaking at the podium, but I do think Kyle Shanahan is a guy that kind of has both of those as well. I got to talk about the Dolphins, man. Speaking of culture, I mean, this is just getting brutal. Miami Dolphins playing the Cleveland Browns, and like you said earlier, the Browns are not a team that we're so high on, okay? And they go and they smack the Miami Dolphins. This is a team that just traded away the Browns their opening day starting quarterback. They're playing Dylan Gabriel, third-round draft pick at quarterback, and they just absolutely obliterate them. The Dolphins are in shambles. They're a mess, and we're just waiting. We're counting down the days, wondering when Mike McDaniel will be fired. Now, we're being a little bit harsh on him, I think, because when you're the head coach, it is so easy to point at the head coach and blame him for everything, especially when it seems to be a cultural issue. Like you heard some of the stuff that Tua said last week, talking about the leadership and people not showing up to meetings on time. Yeah, that's a culture issue. That's a culture thing, and that stems from the head coach down. But Mike McDaniel, I think, still has the capabilities to be an elite offensive coordinator in this league. Elite offensive coordinator. And so he's probably going to get fired maybe in the next couple of weeks, maybe this week, who knows, maybe tomorrow. But he will land as an OC somewhere and he'll have that success again. It's crazy. The 49ers produce a lot of good coaches, whether they go on to have success as head coaches or just at the coordinator level. They are sort of a powerhouse for producing great coaches in the NFL. All right, I do want to touch, these are sort of my surprises and my disappointments of the NFL season so far, okay? Really quickly. Surprises, positive surprises. Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. This is a guy, we talk about him a lot. He had to bounce around the NFL. He has sort of this archetypal story of being on top, being the number one draft pick, taking the Cleveland Browns to get their first ever playoff victory in so long, and then he gets ousted in Cleveland. And then he goes to the Carolina Panthers, and he's playing scout team. He's a backup. And then he gets traded midweek to the Los Angeles Rams, and then we get a little glimpse of what he's capable of when he goes and he wins that first game for the Los Angeles Rams. I can't remember who they're playing, but he led a fourth quarter comeback drive. And there we saw that little glimmer, and then he lands at Tampa Bay, and now they are off. What are they? 5-1 right now. They're playing the Detroit Lions this week, Monday Night Football. That'll be a big one. But Baker's playing like the MVP. He's been a positive surprise. I thought that he would, settle in and find a home there in Tampa Bay and be a solid quarterback. Right now, he's looking like the best quarterback in the NFL, which makes him the most underpaid quarterback in the NFL because I think he's on like $30 million a year. And compare that to guys like Trevor Lawrence and Tua. Baker Mayfield is a bargain. This man needs to redo his contract the way he's playing. Another surprise, the Colts and Daniel Jones. Who thought that this was going to happen? He's making $14 million a year, and he's probably also in the MVP conversation with Baker right now. Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones, this marriage has been working out so well, and it just goes to show you the dysfunction in some of these New York organizations. Hey, props to the Giants right now. It does look like they found their next franchise quarterback in Jackson Dart. Good for them. That's great. But it's not a good look when a quarterback like Daniel Jones leaves all that dysfunction and is now having so much success with a different coach and a different organization. And I do have to admit, I've been kind of a doubter, kind of a skeptic with the Colts, like pointing to some of their wins, like, oh, okay, then it's kind of an easy schedule. What's really been their impressive wins? But I will say them beating the Chargers yesterday, even though the Chargers are banged up, impressive win. And now the Colts are on top of the AFC, 6-1. Joe Flacco, that's a positive surprise. We saw what he did at Thursday Night Football in the Unk Bowl. That was incredible. This guy's 40 years old, 5 kids, bounced around the league, big dad energy. He's got great leadership qualities in the locker room, and he brought that to Cincinnati, and good for them and good for Joe Flacco. He's still doing it. And then the Detroit Lions. This is an organization that I touched on that I thought would take a huge step back after losing both of their coordinators, two of the top coordinators in the NFL, both these guys getting head coaching jobs. It's kind of tough to replace. We've seen that happen with the Philadelphia Eagles, where their coordinators get plucked. When you're a good team, your coordinators get plucked. And oftentimes when that happens, your organization takes a step back the next year. As of right now, the Detroit Lions are not. Dan Campbell has just maintained that organization, and everybody stepped in, and they look like the same old Lions. I did not think they would. Positive surprise there. Disappointment. I love to harp on them. I love to rag on them. And it's the Miami Dolphins and Mike McDaniel. And I think the thing that I really like to harp on is the culture thing. That's something that you are in complete control of as the head coach. I know that once you kind of lose the locker room, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste box, whatever that tube, back in the tube, and it's out now. But that's completely the fault of the head coach for not instilling that. You're letting guys show up to meetings late and not keeping and maintaining the discipline. It leaks onto the football field, and then you go and get smacked by 25 points by the Cleveland Browns. Cam Ward, first overall pick, Tennessee Titans. I know it's not a good organization. I know they just fired their head coach. And so much of the success of a quarterback, especially a young rookie quarterback or a second-year quarterback, is determined by where they land and what situation you land. You listen to Patrick Mahomes talk about his situation. He just raves about how lucky he was to land in Kansas City and be able to sit behind Alex Smith for a couple of years and learn from Coach Reed. And who knows what Patrick Mahomes' career would look like if he landed at the New York Jets. So I know a lot of this to blame is on the organization, but Cam Ward has been less than stellar, hasn't looked great, and I have been a bit disappointed. And then I also have to go back to Aaron Glen's Jets. I think he'll have success again as a defensive coordinator or maybe as a head coach somewhere else. It seems impossible. I don't know who can overcome the curse of the New York Jets organization right now. Maybe Rex Ryan, but you need something big in there to turn that thing around. They're the only team that is winless. They are at 0-7 after losing to the Carolina Panthers. So those are some of my surprises and disappointments of the NFL so far this season. Let's finish up with a little bit of college football. College football is so insane. I will say one of the nice things, I was just in the States, and one of the best things about being in the States is you're in the time zone of football. And so I got to just sit Saturday morning, like 8 a.m., and just watch college football all day. And then at 7 p.m., I went to a college football game. I went to Oregon State. My brother plays for Oregon State. So I'm watching college football on TV all day, and I go to a college football game. It's a peak American experience, and college football is just so crazy. I'm going to pull this up right here. Here's what a weekend of college football. All the upsets. You just never know what's going to happen. Look at these losses. Number 2, Miami lost. That was wild. Carson Beck throwing 4 interceptions. Ole Miss lost. Texas Tech lost. LSU lost. Tennessee lost. USC lost. Memphis lost. Shout out to my boy Danny, who is a coach for UAB, who beat Memphis. Utah lost, and Nebraska lost. All of these are top 25 teams that lost. It's just so fun to watch college football. It does make me wonder, though, about the AP polling, because there's so many upsets. It's like we actually have no idea. And in college football especially, it's really any given Saturday, because any team can beat any team. All right. I mean, we've seen that. We've seen that in the last few weeks, like with Penn State losing to UCLA. You do not know. If you think you can predict college football, you can't. All right, let me pull this up. This is the new AP. I know I just harped on the AP top 25, but hey, let's just look at it anyway. Indiana, the highest they've ever been ranked. Kurt Signetti grabbing that $11.6 million per year contract, 8 years. Damn near $90 million guaranteed. Good for Kurt. They have their highest ranking ever, Indiana, number 2. Then we've got Vanderbilt. I believe this is the first time since 1951 that the Vanderbilt football team, the Commodores, has been ranked in the AP top 10. Unbelievable. You know what I do have to say about this? So back in the day, maybe in the mid-2010s, this is when my brother played for Stanford, and Stanford, obviously an intellectual powerhouse, one of the best universities in the United States. Vanderbilt also up there, one of the best universities in the United States, especially when we're talking about universities that have big-time football. Throw out the Ivies, throw out Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Let's talk about these Division I FBS football schools. I would go, it's Stanford, it's Vandy, and it's Notre Dame. Maybe you can throw Duke in there. But in the mid-2010s, if you were a college football prospect and you cared about the academics and you wanted to go to one of these elite institutions as well as play football, you went to Stanford. You went during that Jim Harbaugh era, the David Shaw era. I saw this firsthand with my little brother. 4.0 student, 2,300 SAT student, great football player, number one recruit in the state. Where do you go? You go to Stanford. Right now, Stanford's down and out. I know they just got that $50 million investment, so it's probably going to change around with Andrew Luck as the GM. But Vandy is becoming the powerhouse intellectual college football program, Vandy and Notre Dame. So it's interesting to see with these more intellectual universities, the switch here. Now Vanderbilt's top 10 and Notre Dame is ranked 12th after that big win against USC. I will say, Jeremiah Love, what did he go for? I got to pull it up. Jeremiah Love is a Heisman candidate. I think he went for 228 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Yeah, big time. Yeah, 228 yards, 1 touchdown in a big time matchup. Now, this actually is the last scheduled matchup between Notre Dame and USC. There's no others that are scheduled right now. And this is sort of another downside of all this college football realignment, kind of losing some of the tradition here. I beg the ADs of these universities to keep this rivalry going, to keep this traditional powerhouse rivalry going. It's so often such a great game. There's some historic games, back before the Eagles had the tush push, Reggie Bush had the tush push at USC against Notre Dame, I believe. And so we gotta make sure that these traditional rivalries continue to be played. This is crazy. Billy Napier, maybe it's not crazy depending on your perspective of college football. We saw James Franklin get fired by Penn State last week. He's chilling, $50 million buyout. He's chilling. He did go on College Game Day and do an interview with the guys on College Game Day. And I was, kudos to him, props to him for how he conducted himself on that. That's a really hard position to be in. No matter how much money you're getting paid behind the scenes, that's kind of a tough situation to go in. And I did appreciate Nick Saban kind of stepping up and saying, hey, it's unfair how Penn State treated you. In this day and age, the expectations of these college football programs are so, in my opinion, they're so unrealistic. It's like this guy was in the semifinal last January. And then, yeah, those were some bad losses, that 3-game skid, bad losses. But it's like, who knows what would happen if you just say, hey, all right, this season's kind of a wash. Let's see if we can right the ship and kind of reset in the offseason. But no, you can't do that in the NIL era. Adidas comes in with their $300 million pledge and basically paid the buyout there. And so it's just getting a crazy world where these college football coaches are getting fired quicker and quicker, and they're getting paid big money to not coach. Let me pull this up here. From Joe Pompliano, who does a lot of good football business stuff. Billy Napier has been fired. He's been there for 4 years. I think his total record was 22-23. The thing was, I was just looking at their schedule this year. So I know he has not been good historically, but their schedule this year has been pretty crazy, all right? So, all right, they played Long Island University. They smacked them 55-0. Bad loss to South Florida, unacceptable there. But then they played number 3 LSU, lost by 10. All right, they lost to Miami, number 4. They beat Texas, who's number 9. Yeah, they lost to Texas A&M, who's number 5. And then they beat Mississippi State. And then the next morning after beating Mississippi State, Napier gets fired. So it just goes to show you how short the leashes are right now for college football coaches. I mean, yeah, you would like to have some of those be wins, but it's not like they're in shambles. And it is kind of strange to me to be fired after winning a game, winning an SEC game at that. I mean, I know Mississippi State is no powerhouse, but it's an SEC win nonetheless. But it's a whole new world with college football coaches. Kind of going back to the Penn State situation because, well, let me compare this to Oregon State. So I know you guys don't care about Oregon State football. Okay, but I do. And it kind of matters in the grand scheme of things for college football to tell the story of what we have going on in the college football environment right now. Penn State fires their coach. Oregon State fires their coach. These two universities have 2 completely different criteria for who they need to go after. Penn State needs to go after a proven winner at that level or the NFL level, splashy name. You heard the rumors they were thinking of going after Curt Cignetti, and those rumors really helped Cignetti secure that big contract. He's not going anywhere. He's like Leo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street. I ain't leaving. He's staying there. So then check off one of those big names that was on your list. Not going to get him. And then Matt Rule at Nebraska. All right, he's kind of in the conversation, but he's talking about, oh, I want to stay here. Now, you can never believe a word that a college football coach says when it comes to this kind of stuff. But Matt Rule went there. He met his wife at Penn State. He grew up. He said he was wearing a Penn State shirt when he came home from the hospital when he was born. So this is probably a dream job for him. But has Matt Rule proved himself recently at Nebraska to be the guy? Is that a step up from James Franklin? I don't know. They did just lose this weekend also. So Penn State's in a tough position. You need something splashy. You need a John Gruden. You need a big name. Oregon State does not necessarily need that. I think they would benefit from getting a guy that's a little bit bigger name, because that helps in this NIL era where Oregon State cannot compete resource-wise to a school like Oregon that's just 30 minutes down the road. But if you get a coach that maybe has a little bit of a reputation, or a guy that these recruits want to play for, and maybe you can get some of these NIL kids for 60% of what they would need to be paid somewhere else. If you get a coach, there's rumors going around of Ed Ogeron, Coach Ogeron State University. Now, a guy like that, he won a national championship in 2019 with LSU. If Oregon State gets a guy like that, that would be incredible. Now, I do know it kind of goes against what I just said. They don't necessarily need a huge name, but that would be massive. But I think Penn State's in a hard spot. They're also talking about going after Marcus Freeman. Does Marcus Freeman leave Notre Dame? Is Penn State a better job than Notre Dame with what Marcus Freeman has built there? I mean, Marcus Freeman, don't forget also, these are people. Marcus Freeman has 6 kids, and I think that's a pretty good area to live. He's got it all set up. He's talked about all the support he has from the university. I think if Marcus Freeman were to leave Notre Dame, the only places he would go would be, one, the NFL. I think he would be a guy who would take the leap to the NFL. And 2, Ohio State. That's the only school I think that's really a step up for him in the college world. He went to Ohio State. He played at Ohio State. There is something to be said about coaching at your alma mater. I think that's really special for these guys. I don't think it's realistic that Penn State will get Marcus Freeman. So I feel like Penn State is in a little bit of a pickle on who they're going to get. I mean, realistically, they need to get Nick Saban out of retirement, which he's too good on TV. He's chilling. His wife said that he is enjoying being on TV too much. So I think Penn State's in a little bit of a pickle, and I'm very curious, which you guys should be too, about Oregon State. I did go to the Oregon State game on Saturday to watch my brother play. They got their first win of the year. Granted, it was against Division I AA Lafayette, and Oregon State was losing at halftime. They did crack it open in the second half. That's kind of where you can see the difference between some of these 1A and 1AA schools, is the depth and the stamina. Lafayette came out swinging. They scored first. They drove down the field a couple times. So you got to remember, this is Lafayette's Super Bowl. They're playing an FBS team in a big stadium on Saturday night on national TV. So they came out hot, and they had all of that energy and momentum. But that can only go so far. You can't sustain that the whole time. You have to fall back onto your scheme, into your talent, and onto the depth that you have. And there you see, even Oregon State, a bad 1A team, was able to kind of run away with it in the second half. I do have to give a shout out, though, to Lafayette football. Flying across the country to play Oregon State, put up a good fight. And hey, I heard Oregon State paid him $500,000 for the game, too. So a nice little chunk of change for the football program. So good for them. All right. Anything else I want to talk about here? I'm going to pull this up. No, I want to talk about that with Mikey maybe. I do. All right, Lane Kiffin is hilarious. This is a guy, so you saw what he said on TV about Kirby Smart. They were playing Georgia this week, and he had that comment about Kirby Smart not burning as many calories as him. Kirby Smart, obviously a little bit of a heavier guy than Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin, he went sober, he got healthy, he lost a lot of weight, and now he's posting photos of himself. I think this was on game day, shirtless with some yoga instructors. This is the morning of the game. This might be why they lost, Lane Kiffin. A little bit distracted. I will say, I do love Lane Kiffin on Twitter. He is kind of perfect for college football. He's a showman himself. He's obviously a guy that can build a program. He's turned Ole Miss into a power program there, one of the best in the country. Probably going to see them in the college football playoff this year. But if you remember, last year, they missed the college football playoff, and he was incredibly vocal on Twitter, kind of ripping these other schools, ripping the decision committee, the selection committee for not including Ole Miss. So he is a very vocal character. This is a guy who has a very, very fun personality. They did drop their game to Georgia, however, but they played them well. That was a great game. I think it ended up being 43-35, so it's like a one-possession game. I got that. Anything else I want to hit on? No, I think that's it for right now. Gosh, football's so great. I will say I'm back in Germany now, so I have to watch football delayed a little bit. So something I'm going to miss. If you're watching this from the United States, do not take it for granted. If you can just wake up on a Saturday or a Sunday and sit on your couch and turn on your TV and watch live football all day, and also have the Monday night game and the Thursday night game be in a time window that you can watch comfortably, cherish that. Do not take that for granted. Not all of us football fans have that. If you're an international football fan like I am, you've got to grind, and we don't have that luxury. So cherish it, enjoy it. Got the Monday night game coming up, Tampa Bay and the Detroit Lions. Big one right here. We're going to see. If Baker wins that, part of me thinks the Lions are going to pull this off and kind of, let's not say stop the magic, but slow down the magic of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But who knows? I've been wrong many times before. All right. That's it. Thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.